Hello and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile, and this is the show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, and we get to talk about everything in between. Today, incredible guest. I have Jeff Spring. He is the CEO and tour director of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Jeff, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Michael. How are you?
Buddy, the pleasure is all mine. I'm on top of the world. This is my favorite thing I get to do, so I appreciate you giving me a couple minutes of your time, and I appreciate everybody out there listening. Gives me a reason to get up every morning, right?
We're stoked to be on talking about disc golf. Love the podcast.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate the heck out of that. So, Jeff, we're going to get into disc golf. We're going to get into what does the CEO and tour director do of the disc golf tour? We're going to get into all of it. But the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
I grew up as a sports fan. Actually, my mom was a bigger sports fan than my dad. I'm from Vermont, which is in the Northeast. So you'd think, maybe New England sports teams, but she was from New York and raised me a New York Giants and New York Yankees fan. Sorry.
One or two, man. I'm a Giants too. So one or two. I'll take it. I can't blame you, really.
I don't know what the split is. When you're a Giants fan, do you know, like, what's the percentage of Yankees? What's the percentage of
it's got to be like 70. Like, if you're a Yankees fan, 70% Giants, like maybe 30% Jets, because you either like happiness, so you're a Giants and a Yankees fan, or you're a Maximist and you're a Mets and Jets fan. Thankfully, I got one of each. I don't know how it happened, but it did. But
I was interested in those percentage splits. But yeah, my mom was from Albany. My grandfather, big Giants fan, and so that got me going. Also, my best friend across the street, we just grew up, playing in the neighborhood, picking up the football, the frisbee, playing wiffle ball, and then, organized sports as a kid. I played soccer in college at Northeastern University and all through high school, and actually played golf competitively in high school, and then kind of, all the eggs in the soccer basket, but huge sports fan. I guess I just love the memories of just being exhausted and sweaty and grass covered as a kid, coming in from, neighborhood, whatever the sport was that day for dinner. And that's probably the most iconic memory for me.
I love that, man. Sometimes it was just rolling down a hill too, right? When you were that young. It didn't really matter what the sport was. We're going to race. We're going to figure it out. We're going to have a good time with it. So,
exactly.
No, 100%, man. I love that. Obviously grew up playing sports as well. And I think it's really important, right? Got to get kids out there. What's the thing they do? They just play video games all the time. So hopefully we can give them a new sport to play, or bring their attention to a new sport that they can play. Sport's been around for a little while now, and I am excited to just learn more about disc golf. Now, it's actually really funny. You and I were chatting a little bit beforehand. I was supposed to have you on the day that clip went absolutely ballistically viral.
Yeah.
So if you didn't see it yet, just search it. I'm sure if you just search disc golf, you'll figure it out. This guy, we'll get to it a little bit later. This guy makes an incredible shot. Anybody on planet Earth that's ever thrown a Frisbee, I'm sure you'll find it absolutely fantastic. So I just thought that was funny. I almost had you, man. I almost had you. But I get it. Scott Van Pelt, he's a little bit more important. We're going to get to that a little bit later too. But I guess just explain. I mean, the word golf is in it, so it can't be too far off. But what exactly is disc golf? And how can someone like myself just say, like, hey, I want to go play? Like, I know where my local golf course is. I don't think I know where my local disc golf course is, though.
Absolutely. So disc golf is one of the most accessible sports and one of the cheapest sports to play in the country. There's actually disc golf courses all around you, no matter where you're listening from, as well as all around you, Michael. And the way you find those courses is going to one of our partners' apps, UDisc, and just search. There's a map function, and you'll be able to see all the courses around you. A lot of them are free. The advent of pay-to-play disc golf courses is growing. We're not at like the country club status for many courses, but
disc golf country club sounds awesome. Sign me up. Once we get that, hopefully I'm making enough money by then. Sign me up for that. That sounds fantastic.
And honestly, it's getting there. Like the shift in maybe demographics and trends throughout the country away from maybe the $10,000 country club membership. A lot of those folks are picking up disc golf and finding their local course. And a lot more of the courses now have, food and drink. You can get your IPA there after you're done your rounds and hang out with the boys. There's clubs, there's leagues. Hang out with the kids, hang out with the girls. Like, it's very friendly for, young, old, any gender. It's very accessible, and it's basically, getting back to your original question, very much like golf. Instead of hitting a ball with a club, you're throwing a disc with your arm, and a little different than the traditional Frisbee. Frisbees are great for catch. They're a little wider and they float really nicely. Discs are just a smaller circumference by about 2/3 smaller, I would say. About the same weight. They're all between 150 grams and 175 grams. But just like golf, you have putters. In disc golf, you have mid-range, fairway drivers, and drivers. So like your set of irons, you're going to have a bag full of discs. Now, when you start, you can start with just like a putter or mid-range or even a Frisbee and go out and play these free courses. So again, very easy to get into, very few barriers. If you find a local course, grab a disc and go, grab your Frisbee and go. $8 for a disc, very easy to get involved. But as you progress, then you start having all the different mid-ranges and fairway drivers and drivers. They can go up to our pros on tour, throw them 550, 600 feet accurately, and they can shape the shot. So you're turning left to right, you're turning right to left, and then some shots you can turn left to right and then have it fade back like an S turn. So it's a beautiful sport. A lot of people are brought into it because they love watching the flight of a disc through the air. It's a little different than a ball, right? So when you hit the ball, obviously you can fade it, you can hook it, you can duck hook it, hopefully not. But, on the disc side of things, they just get up there and they float and they go forever. And with the professional golf discs, they're just a lot more accurate than traditional Frisbee. So tees, fairways, greens, pars 3s, pars 4, par 5s, and you can go from there. But
bunkers, are there any sand traps?
They're starting to be, because a lot of traditionally the sand trap in golf would be in disc golf would be a bush. That you have to play around, because we're through the air, so like the footing doesn't matter, and that's what brings a lot more of the affordability to it, because you don't have to put a lot of money into maintaining the ground. You carve out a fairway from the woods, and it's kind of like a light hike. It's a little bit more environmentally friendly. You're out in nature a little bit more, and there's less pretentiousness. There's less, deal like with tee times or dress code. At the pro level, we're starting to get there a little bit more, but for the casual fan, they can get out there. Casual player, get out there and enjoy it in a pretty casual setting. So.
And where's the history come from? Because it makes sense, right? And actually, how the holes, explain that, because there's a couple podcasts that I listen to, and they kind of not poke fun at it, but they actually had somebody on. I can't remember who they had on. They're just calling it banging chains, right? Is that a slang term that I've heard? Because that one makes me laugh. How does the hole work? And you're obviously not putting it into a hole, right?
It's a pole hole, so it's an elevated basket, and what you call it in disc golf is a basket. And there's certainly a rich history. It kind of came out of the counterculture of the 60s with the Frisbee and then flying disc sports, and it's evolved to where we are now. But along the way, there was basically targets that were objects to start, but then a guy named Ed Hedrick, known as Steady Ed, founded the Disc Golf Association. This is in the 70s, and created the disc golf basket. And so that's kind of the real origin of the sport. And he called it a pole hole at first, but he was like, "Hey, this is a lot like golf, but we want it elevated a little bigger, and then on a pole." And so there's basically the top has chains hanging down. And so the chains are there in order to basically stop the disc's momentum and have it fall into the hole. And as long as it's suspended in the chains or in the basket, it counts as holing out, just like you're making a putt in golf. And since then, that equipment has elevated. And now at the pro level, there's certain targets that are approved for championship use. But there's a lot of manufacturers out there, and there's 20 different types of disc golf baskets. And the top level ones are pretty heavy duty and have pretty heavy duty chain gauge and work pretty reliably. But it is a hot topic at the professional level. Which ones are approved? How consistent do they catch? Do they spit your disc out? Do you have cut throughs? So it's a whole element to the sport.
Yeah. And obviously you keep bringing up the professional level because, again, Jeff Spring, CEO and tour director of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I promise you we'll get there. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the sport a little bit more. And I guess with especially over the last, let's call it 18 months, heard some stuff was going on planet Earth. People were more comfortable outside, maybe in bigger spaces. Was this something that you saw over the last, I guess, pandemic, that people are starting to the sports, because it's so accessible, as you said, because it's a nice way to get outside. I always what's the Mark Twain quote? Golf's a long walk spoiled. I 100% agree with that. I'd rather just drink beer and drive a golf cart. Like with like like, have you seen the sport grow, especially from that more like casual, just like, hey, you guys want to go do something? It's a Tuesday. We all are unemployed. Surprise. You want to go do, like, have you seen that from, I guess from where you sit up high in the sport?
Yeah, absolutely. It's skyrocketed, and this is for a sport that's already like very quickly growing. All the trends kind of, you could average them out to like 15% growth year after year for the last like 12, 15 years. So it's substantial. And so everybody's like, oh, wow, look at this year. And then all of a sudden, boom, it went 2.5 times bigger. So like 250% growth rate over the pandemic, for all the reasons that you can imagine. Outdoor sporting, goods stores, other sports, golf itself, all skyrocketed. But disc golf, I think, may be in another echelon in terms of growth rate during the pandemic because of the affordability, the accessibility, the casual nature of it, and definitely the disc manufacturers, which are great partners of the tour, they give us good insight, but they still can't keep up with. They can't make enough discs for the people in the United States that want to buy them. So they're constantly out. They've doubled capacity, and they're still selling through their products. And that's just a barometer for what you've mentioned. There's just incredible growth rate, and I think that story is probably similar to like I said, several industries, but I can't quantify it exactly, but all I could say is I would say it's probably between 2 and 3 times bigger, more people playing, and all of our partners, whether it's UDisc, that app that logs scores at courses, or the manufacturers, or just the people watching. It's 2.5 times bigger, I would say.
That is incredible. And that's like, I like taking negatives and turning them into positives when possible. And I think that's a really good thing, obviously for the sport, but like just for people, man, get outside, stop. Like what, I don't get why it took, a pandemic for people to be like, I kind of want to go play tennis. Like, what were you doing the whole time? Like, just go play tennis. It's not that hard. And as you said, it's so accessible. And I feel like disc golf's one of those things too. Like, yeah, maybe you don't have a pole in your backyard, but you could aim at shit, right? Like you could kind of like walk around and be like, all right, you got to get around. And I feel like you can kind of have that little like ambiguous. That's not a word, Jeff. I don't even know what that means, but like kind of like a makeshift game, something like in your backyard. You got some obstacles, move some stuff around, and just play, right? So I think that's
for sure
pretty important thing.
A basket definitely takes people's enjoyment to the next level, because they're actually like able to putt and practice in their backyard. But that's easy enough. I mean, baskets sell for $125, and those sales skyrocketed. But to your point, I mean, Prospect Park in Brooklyn had a object course, still does. I mean, for like 10 years. So like if I was down in the city, like I have played that course, and it's just like different markings on the trees, different spots on the ground. And that's kind of the beauty of disc golf, is that at the grassroots level, and still even at the casual level, you can have a disc golf course be 3 holes in a small local park, and it's still a fun game. It's like, start here and here's your object. And it's kind of compelling no matter where you put it. There's urban courses down like they like close down city blocks, like for parades or something. Like I've heard of that in cities where they, you can play down the street.
That's awesome, man. And I guess last question before we kind of move on to what you're doing a little bit more, like what is a game, like an 18-hole game? Was that like, that's one thing about golf too that sucks. It's like 4.5 hours. Like I don't feel like doing that.
Right.
Like, maybe do 9 and still hate like the half of 9. Like what like, as you said, it's very casual. You can probably just walk off whenever you want, but what's like I know it's subjective, but what's like a normal 18-hole game look like?
Yeah, I've got good news for you there. Probably about half the time of like a golf round. So obviously competition,
of course,
up, but like if you're just going to an 18-hole course play, like I usually average 90 minutes to 2.5 hours to get through like a round if I'm just playing with a couple buddies. and moving
Depends on
through
how
it.
many
So
beer, I'm assuming.
yeah,
Usually.
well, morning rounds are quicker than
Of course.
evening rounds. So
Makes sense.
yeah,
Makes
exactly.
I'm sure. That's awesome, man. So I guess like you're very clearly one of my favorite things is to talk to people who are passionate about literally anything. And you're very clearly passionate about the sport. It comes through. I appreciate
For sure.
you being on and explaining everything to me again from that novice level. But I gotta ask, like, I like baseball. I'm not the, commissioner of the MLB. Like that would be cool, dream job kind of shit. But like, how do you become and why did you become the CEO, tour director of this kind of not makeshift, but like this up and coming league? What made you want to do that?
Yeah, my story in disc golf has really rapidly ascended over the past decade. I got first introduced to the sport in 2008, and from there, I became a member of my local club. I started designing courses, and then I kind of planted my flag in the professional game when I designed a course at Smuggler's Notch Resort in Vermont. That quickly became two courses, quickly became one of the top level disc golf facilities in the world. And we started hosting one of the best events in the world. So just to rewind, I grew up actually as a camp counselor. And that was my first job. I was 16 at overnight camp. I went there as a kid. Always taught kids, how to throw the Frisbee, enjoyed it. And as we were kind of chatting before, always a big sports fan. I played competitive sports throughout my childhood, played college soccer at Northeastern, and then kind of was looking to scratch that itch after college, like what is next in terms of competition for me? Because, I played like not everybody goes and plays college sports, and I was a competitive person. Mm-hmm. And so my buddy that I, basically went to camp with, he was one of the counselors there with me. We became like program directors, helped run the camp. He knew that I, love teaching kids, how to throw the Frisbee, dabbled a little in ultimate Frisbee. He said, you got to check out this game. And he took me to the first disc golf course I went to at Waterbury Center in Vermont, free public access. And I just instantly knew that this was like pulling together, my love of competitive golf from, I played competitive golf in high school, just the love of throwing a Frisbee. And yeah, I was hooked immediately, started competing, actually played on the Vermont pro, the pro division in the Vermont tour, because every state has a tour and then there's regional tours and stuff. And found some success there. Actually, no big deal. 2-time Vermont state champion. You're talking to. We probably should have led with that.
Yeah, sorry I didn't have that in the intro, man. That one's on me. My bad.
No, all good. And then, like I said, I kind of found a way to integrate it into my job at Smuggler's Notch Resort. I was the director of the ski and ride school. We teach people how to ski and snowboard. Had about 300 instructors under me, and then we kind of was figuring out what to do in the summer. Got in there because of the summer camp connection, but developed a mountain bike program and then developed this disc golf program. Took off. Joined the Pro Tour, which was founded in 2016. This was a concept that had been bubbling up through the top levels of the PDGA, which is an organization that basically is the governing body of the sport. They make all the rules, all the tech standards, in terms of like the basket and how that is managed. They manage those type of technical capabilities of the discs, the baskets, the rules. And so there's this new idea that, hey, there's so many people, dedicating their life at a professional level. There's world champions. There's a national tour. What can we do to take this to the next level? The Pro Tour was founded. Our event was on it. And then in 2018, I ran the World Championship for the professionals. And after that, the tour was kind of recapitalized. And that's right before the pandemic hit. When it was recapitalized, purchased by our current owner, he said, hey, I've seen the success at Smuggler's Notch Resort. I'm going to tap you to be the CEO and director of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And from there, we've seen enormous growth. We saw the founding of the Disc Golf Network, which is our live streaming platform. And the pandemic just kind of accelerated that. So that's the story in a nutshell. Sorry.
I love it. No, it's a good nutshell, man. That's a good nutshell. I mean, it's so shout out to the current owners. As you said, you kind of got tapped, but from your standpoint, obviously seemed like a very smart dude. You went to Northeastern, so we don't have to pat everybody on the back here, but great job. What That seems like a pretty big jump, right? Like going from, hanging out, working on a mountain, like really figuring it out. Obviously, you understood the sport. You were on the tour a little bit, so you understood it. But were you kind of like, whoa, like, all right, now this is I was doing great in Vermont. Now let's go completely nationwide. That seems like a pretty big jump. Was that the exciting part for you? Was that something that was kind of a little hesitant, or did you just kind of say like, I want to do this. I don't care what's going to happen. Let's figure it out when we get there.
Yeah, I can totally appreciate the perspective that, hey, this is a big jump, but there's a couple factors behind the scenes where, this was the right move for me. And,
Killer.
at the point in time when it was offered, I did think about it a little bit because, it's my home state. I love Vermont, and, running the ski and ride school there, and developing mountain bike programs, and even developing the disc golf operation there was pretty much like a dream job. But I felt like this was my true calling,
Yeah.
to move forward. I helped the founder of the Pro Tour, Steve Dodge, in 2016 get things off the ground and been an advisor for the Pro Tour. I'd spent 8 years as a state representative for the PDGA. And I'd been to, I think, 5 world championships. I traveled to Europe for the European Championship. I had gone to down to the United States Disc Golf Championship for the last 8 years. So I'd seen like the very highest level of the sport. Okay. And it wasn't until 2014 at the World Championship out in Portland, Oregon, that something clicked for me on the professional side, where I said, I'm a huge sports fan. I've grown up in it, obviously a college athlete, a business degree from Northeastern, that was in actually a focus in music industry. So running events, kind of having a lot of people coming out and organizing large venues. So, there's some stuff that translated there. And then when I saw, 4,000, 5,000 people in attendance at that event in 2014, which was kind of like this very special moment for the sport, similar to a couple we've had since then. I said the potential here is incredible. Playing golf in high school too, and going to a bunch of PGA events, I saw how this could translate in a way that would be unique, but also like follow in the footsteps of the PGA Tour. And with our new owner being able to recapitalize and give the tour assets, and having that like really kind of intimate understanding of the challenges of the previous ownership group of the tour, the pathway was there. And, without that opportunity, I think it would have been hard for me to say, I want to make this leap, but just there's so many connections right in front of me. I said, this is it. I can see how to do it. And, kind of the path towards running the World Championship in 2018 it just kind of all connected. And, those connections were kind of pulling me forward. And so it just kind of felt serendipitous. It felt like it was my calling. And since then, it's kind of been this wonderful acceleration of even, exceeding where I thought we could be right now.
That is awesome, man. Kudos and congratulations. That is so darn cool. As you said, you do what you love every day, so you're not working too much. So
exactly.
Good for you, Jeff. Good for you. One more time, Jeff Spring, CEO, tour director of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So I guess because it is, I mean, again, as you said, I didn't realize sport's been around since the 70s and has some like legitimate rules, like a governing body and everything. How are you guys the only professional tour? Is there like competing, like, again, usually with, as you said, it's only been around since 2016. So I'm sure you guys weren't the first to come up with this idea, or maybe you're not going to be the last. Like how does the landscape of professional disc golf look in terms of, I guess, just the governing bodies themselves before we get down to like the actual player level?
Sure. Yeah. So the Professional Disc Golf Association has been around since I think around 80. Okay. 1978 perhaps is the founding of it. And that's when the first World Championship was. Okay. So there's been World Champions every year since then, until last year when the World Championship was canceled due to the pandemic. However, it was probably late 80s, early 90s when the professional game really started getting some traction. And we saw Ken Climo, who is basically probably the Bill Russell of professional disc golf. Right. He's won 12 world championship titles, and he kind of dominated. He won nine world championships in a row. and the marketability of him kind of just started taking off. One of the founding companies of disc golf, Innova. So the Innova founder is named Dave Dunapace. He invented the bevel edge disc. So basically, I told you the story about the basket. In the early 80s, Dave took the Frisbee, which was basically like from a pie plate, really flippy, not very stable flight, and started re-engineering it and starting, basically to add a beveled edge to the disc that would go further, be more stable, be more controllable. And from there, now we have dozens of manufacturers that try to, change the dome of the disc, the flight plate, the rim, to make discs do different things. And now disc collector market, for instance, is blowing up. People buy $500 discs every day. These things are super collectible and kind of like the ultimate trading card in some ways. That aside, the Professional Disc Golf Association kind of created a national tour in the early 2000s that progressed and kind of created the first line of events where people could go across the country and go to some of these great locations that had fantastic courses and kind of bring the big show to different communities. And that helps seed and inspire people. But as I mentioned, this 15% growth rate is real. Like, people find out about it, they love it, they get hooked, and it keeps growing slowly. And so that kind of created this opportunity where, could there be an organization that was just dedicated to like the professional side of the game? Because the PDGA was not just running the national tour, but they were managing all the amateur events. We're talking about like 4,000, 5,000 events a year, and doing all the administration, setting all the rules. They're a nonprofit. They got a board of directors. And so that's kind of like the USGA, I would say, of our sport. And they were really kind of looking for this kind of next step. And in 2016, 2 tours started at once. One was the Disc Golf World Tour, and one was the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And when the World Tour got going, they were kind of spread out. They did one in Australia, they did one in Europe, they did one in California. And after a couple of years, they kind of wound down their operation and said, hey, maybe we'll be back. But the Pro Tour kind of stepped up and elevated. So currently, there's the national tour that the PDGA runs, and they're our partners. And we run the Pro Tour. The Pro Tour is about 3 times the amount of events, but there are national tour events still. And honestly, we're working with them to try to find a merger, kind of like ALNL, right? Or NBA, ABA. At least that's what I like to think.
I like it. Hey, man.
On a different scale.
We've seen the media rights they've been getting. Keep doing your thing, dude. Keep doing your thing.
Right, exactly. So we work very closely with them. I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to kind of merge. And then if you have me on in a year or two, I'd say, hey, we're the one PGA tour. They're the USGA. They manage some major championships. But next year in 2022, the majors have kind of been reformed, and there's going to be 4 PDGA majors. And we hope to run about a 20 to 25 event disc golf pro tour. So the way it mirrors golf is kind of starting to kind of shift and form in that kind of reflection.
Yeah. And I think, again, obviously golf's in the name, so that helps a lot. But the more you can mirror something that very clearly is stable, has been stable. I don't know. How long has the PGA been around? Like 18, blah, 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 or something? Like, I don't know. Like, if you could kind of just mirror that as much as you can, but obviously put your spin, put your brand on it, and get people to understand. It's like, don't worry, you don't have to wear long pants to play. Like, you can play in flops, guys. It's not that big a deal.
You don't need your knee-high knickers. No, and it's also like, people understand the PGA Tour, so why not give them something similar?
Yep. Before we started talking, I was like, so are there majors? And very clearly there are. So I guess, like, how many events are we doing a year? And like the utmost, the Jordan Spieths of the world, how many of them, like, events are there? How many majors are there? Where are they? Do they move? Do you have a Masters? Do you think we can go to Augusta one day, throw some poles in the... No, I'm kidding. But I guess, like, how does the professional level work? Are these guys making enough money that, like, this is their job and this is what they do at this point?
Well, so for that question, absolutely.
A lot of questions. Sorry about that.
No. For that last part, absolutely. Like, we have it, like, I think probably one of, and I'm a huge sports fan, and I'm obviously biased, but I'll say it.
I hope so.
I think we have one of the best crops of athletes in terms of marketability, personalities, professionalism, intrigue. Like these pros that we have, men and women, are incredible athletes, incredible personalities, and incredible people. And the more people get to know them, the more these folks are becoming celebrities within disc golf. And I think that that's helping drive the growth. Paul Macbeth is a 5-time world champion. He just signed a $10 million contract with Discraft, which is his manufacturer sponsor.
That's
so he throws, yeah, exactly. He
Shit,
throws
dude.
all Discraft. So actually, this is a conversation for another time, but I'll set it up. I've been pretty interested to see how sponsorship contracts and earnings, kind of battle each other in disc golf. Because if you think about LeBron James, he gets paid by his team. Nobody's like, oh, how much did he win when he won the NBA finals? Like, nobody's thinking about that. Nobody thinks like, how much did Patrick Mahomes win when he wins the Super Bowl? They're like, oh, he gets paid by his team, so don't worry about it. But in golf, like if you win the Masters, people are interested. Oh, $2 million winnings. Oh, $12 million purse. That kind of stuff is kind of on the individual sports, tennis, golf, like that's driving the revenue for the players, at least in terms of conversation. I know they get big sponsorship deals too. But right now, our purses are much smaller compared to that $10 million contract. And I think that's going to set the high watermark that people will be chasing down for a bit. But I think our premier athletes are definitely bringing in six figures from their sponsorship contracts before winnings on the tour. The most anyone's ever won on the tour is about $80,000. And I think that's going to be broken pretty soon. Our purses are going up because now people are wanting to pay to come spectate the events in large numbers. So like that's helping drive the purses up. But typically, if you win a Disc Golf Pro Tour event, you're getting anywhere between $5,000 and $20,000. And yeah, we basically have about 20 to 25 like elite level top tier events that people go to, but people are touring, there's events every weekend that aren't necessarily like pro tour events, thousands of events, and they're different tiers of PGA events. But majors, let me talk about that. That was part of your question. So
again, too many questions, but I was so excited. I need to get it all out.
No, I mean, I'll try to be succinct, but I can't get going here, Michael. So you gotta keep
that's why I'm excited, man. You're getting me excited. I can't wait to go on some banks and chains later.
Let's go. Exactly. Bang some chains for sure. And I think that was Barstool's.
Yeah, that was part of my take. Yeah,
exactly.
I thought it was hilarious. It got me going.
No, it is. Yeah. I mean, that's not uncommon terminology in the sport, especially at the day-to-day level. So majors, though, I mean, basically, I feel like next year we're entering the open era of disc golf. So you hear about the open era. Margaret Court, for instance, 25 major championships in tennis, and Serena's like trying to track her down, but she has some majors before. I think she's won Australian Opens before anyone outside of Australia was allowed to play. So that's kind of like asterisks. But now Serena's beaten everybody, so she's got to have something else to try to do. So basically, we have had years where there's been 3 majors. We've had years when there's been 5. Typically, there's 4, but the 2 that have been, there since 1999 are the U.S. Disc Golf Championship. That's always held at Winthrop University, and it's called the USDGC, kind of like the U.S. Open. However, it doesn't rotate, so it's almost more like the Masters.
That's the Masters, yeah.
That's the Masters. The USDGC is kind of like the Masters. And then the World Championship, that's the biggest title you can win. Maybe not the most prestigious because the USDGC is at this like one location. But the World Championship, that's the one where Ken Climo's got 12. Paul Macbeth has got 5. You just know players by their 5-time, their 12-time, their 2-time. Ricky Wysocki is a 2-time winner. Paige Pierce on the women's side, 5-time. Juliana Korver, 5-time. Those 5 times, those are all world championships. So that's the most important title. And that's what your legacy is really built around, is those world championships if you're a pro. And that rotates. And so it's kind of been, that's the one in Portland in 2014, Smuggler's Notch Resort in 2018. It was in Ogden, Utah this last year, where James Conrad got it done in very dramatic fashion. So
I love it, man. This is awesome. No, I think it's such a cool again, the more you can mirror it to a sport that everyone kind of knows and loves already, like the better it becomes, right? And as you said, they're like 4-day events. Like most are 3-day events, and then you go to these big, it's 4 days long. We're not messing around. This is legitimate stuff. And I mean, they're long courses. You're having a good time watching. And I just think it is so darn cool. And obviously, you brought up Big Cam, big part of my Take fan. I do enjoy listening to that show. And they actually, only like a couple weeks ago, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. There was this incredible clip on the internet where this guy, I think he hit a birdie, right? And he tied whoever, I apologize, I don't remember everyone's name, but the shot is just, it was like 270 yards. It's just this like big swooping shot, and it's absolutely incredible. And the whole place goes ballistic. You're not going to see that at a golf event, right? Unless you're on, I've actually been to 16 at the Waste Management. So that was a lot of fun, but
that's pretty awesome.
Everyone went ballistic. It was so much fun. So if you're listening, you haven't seen it, I'll probably put it in the show notes. I'll put a little clip so you can watch it, but something like that happens. And as you said, there's been a 250% growth this year alone. What does that do for you, your sport, specifically the Pro Tour? Because I'm sure that is a significant amount of people's first time even hearing like disc golf is a thing.
Right.
Like, how do you take advantage of something like that and just try and run with that momentum as much as possible?
Well, it was certainly a transcendent moment for the sport. It may end up being what a lot of people point to towards another big like growth moment or turning the corner in terms of like national media attention or getting new fans involved. I mean, the way we're taking advantage of it, I mean, we're building on national media debut last year, kind of from the pandemic, right? So from we had CBS Sports cover one of ours, the Dynamic Discs Open. And then from there, we talked to ESPN2 and covered the Tour Championship. So I think that kind of helped set the stage because it was in national media, like kind of atmosphere. And then when they see a moment that's so incredible, I mean, this is like holing out from the fairway on 18 at Augusta to like push a playoff. I mean, that was picked up, the reaction, the moment. It was all live on the Disc Golf Network where we stream our events. And to win the PDGA Pro World Championship the whole after pushing to a playoff, I think that we're trying to take advantage of this by continuing to get disc golf in front of a national audience and tell about how accessible it is. All the things we've been talking about and just trying to keep that momentum going by I think August 4th is our air date for the Portland Open, but that's going to be on ESPN2. And that's going to be available for anybody that wants to watch it. So 8 p.m. August 4th, I think it's a Wednesday, is our next, big national program. And I think we're going to probably have a highlight package actually as part of like their Ocho coverage the following weekend.
Love it.
And then the Tour Championship will be on ESPN2 as well. But since that shot, we've definitely got called by a couple other networks that wanted us to do some recaps and create some more media. So we're doing everything we can to, kind of take advantage of it and keep grinding and keep getting the sport out there. And every which way, whether it's national media or grassroots. But that said, we do have a great media plan now that's kind of like our bread and butter that involves, basically the digital media revolution that we're seeing with cutting the cord, OTT networks, and just YouTube. And a lot of disc golf is free to watch now. We have post-production partners. One, Jomez Pro, he's got his media team has over 300,000 subscribers, and every video they put out is basically automatically 250,000 views. And so our tournaments are getting well over 1 million views every time we have a tournament for free. And then a lot of those people are saying, what a moment that was live. Let me go watch the Disc Golf Network live. And it's kind of like this ladder that you can climb in terms of just being a fan. I think now more than ever, people are becoming fans of the sport without necessarily even playing. Like, I'm a huge fan of football. I don't play football ever. And like, that has never really been that's never been a thing for disc golf. Mostly like if you're watching, you're a player. But we had multiple people comment and say like, I like, friends of friends, that were watching that live, that were saying that was the most compelling like sports moment I've ever seen, like let alone disc golf, because of just the drama, the moment. James Conrad, just to follow up, I know you kind of set me up there. James Conrad threw in from 247 feet after kind of, failing to put his drive in the fairway. He basically had to chip out, and he had to throw in to basically force a playoff with the 5-time world champ Paul Macbeth, who looked like he was marching for number 6. And it was a shocking moment. The crowd there exploded. I was like 30 feet from the basket, and I was I was trying to curate the championship moment. I was like, okay, Paul Macbeth, 6-time world champion, all of a sudden, like, you are going to bring out the trophy. We're going to let that moment breathe. We're going to have the camera here, and then you're going to come out, you're going to announce him. You're going to let that breathe. You're going to come out and you're going to do the interview for the live, coverage. And all of a sudden I hear this like murmuring, and I turn around and I see a disc flying. I'm like, that looks pretty good. And then it was like an explosion.
Yeah, it was cool because you could kind of hear people, as you said, they're like, "Oh, well, is that really? Whoa, no, oh," and then the crowd just builds and builds and builds. And it's like a golf, as you say, it's the easiest way to put it. It is like, someone hits an incredible fairway shot, and you're just like, "Oh, that's a good shot." Whoa, it's still rolling. Oh my God, it's still got, and like you could hear that in the crowd, and everyone got up for it, and it was just such a cool moment, man. It was just such a cool moment, and to be there for it. That's so cool.
I know. I would equate it like being a golf fan. Masters is one of my favorite events. It is similar to like Tiger's chip in on 16 that one time when he was playing DeMarco down the stretch. And then he won it in a playoff. But like, you think, this isn't actually going to go in, you know what I mean? But imagine he did that on 18, like out of the bunker, out of the fairway or something. Yeah. Incredible.
I love it, man. I have 2 more questions for you. One, so you've been talking about the Disc Golf Network. Is this a YouTube page that we can all just go to and watch? Where can I find this?
It's not. It's our OTT subscriber website. So you can go to discgolfnetwork.com. And it's a downloadable app on iOS or Android. It's on Roku, on Xbox. We have, I think, 8 platforms where you can download the app for free. And there is some free content on there. But if you want to watch live, basically, it's a monthly or a yearly subscriber fee. Cool. But if you go to our Disc Golf Pro Tour YouTube page, tons of content on there for free. And the final day of every one of our events is actually stream free. So if you want to check out the live for free, go to Disc Golf Pro Tour YouTube page.
Very cool. I'll put all those links down there.
Thanks.
So so I work for a betting company. Just recently got hired, and it's a lot of fun. I'm not going to ask a question. I'm just going to say that and kind of see what you have to say against it.
Well, I think we're heading in that direction. We've got some daily fantasy sites that we're considering bringing on board, and I think that's step one. We are working with the PDGA, who's the governing body, and right now, any gambling has to be vetted. So like basically before we get into the gambling side of things, we have to vet like the final steps of our gambling policy for players and make sure that there is like a really nice pipeline for, and there's a lot of great examples in sports, obviously, that protect against some of the issues that we've seen in the past with sports betting. So we're taking it slow on that. And I would expect the potential for 2022, gambling on disc golf. I can't really predict it, but there may be an opportunity there. But daily fantasy, I think, is our step.
That is pretty
cool. Yeah, I think we're working on finalizing something, and it should be announced in the next week or 2.
Oh, no way! Congratulations!
Yeah.
Good shit, man. That's pretty cool.
Who are you working with?
I work for William Hill Caesars. Just started a couple months ago, and they said I could keep doing this show, so I do this for fun because it's my favorite thing I get to do. So awesome. A lot of cool stuff going on in gambling. I can promise you that. I mean, obviously, it's kind of taken over the country. That's also something that came out of the pandemic. I mean, people were doing it obviously forever, but once it became legalized and once everyone was stuck at home, and they're like, well, I throw $5 on the Giants to win. I lost, but it was fun, right? So it was one of those things where it's, all these newer sports. Every time I talk to someone from your position, it's always like, well, you will get people to bet on it. I don't care what it is. Right. We were betting on marble racing. Remember that in the beginning of the pandemic when we weren't allowed outside? People were betting on marble racing. They'll clearly bet on anything. So I just think it's pretty cool. And again, if with that 4-day, I mean, that's one thing. I have some good buddies that play a lot of golf DFS. And it's that 4-day sweat. It's that kind of being there the whole time, just kind of hoping who makes the cut, who doesn't, that kind of thing. And golf is probably my favorite DFS to play because it is just that fun, long-term-ish opportunity that you get with it. Yeah, man, Jeff, this has been absolutely fantastic. Sincerely appreciate your time. Where can we follow it? So you gave us the YouTube, you gave us a couple of the apps. UDisc one more time. Anybody out there that wants to just go check out and see where your local course is, check it out. Give me some. What are your socials? What are disc golf socials? Let's talk about some of that stuff. Throw that at me.
Yeah, Disc Golf Pro Tour, where that's the one I would say go follow, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're dropping a new TikTok account pretty soon, so you can follow us on there as well. But yeah, we've got some media partners, Jomez Pro, GK Pro, and Gatekeeper, that you can go on YouTube and watch all of our content on, that do basically next day post-production coverage, where you can see every shot condensed for free on our YouTube channel as well. You can watch live on Sundays, pretty much almost every Sunday. You can watch a live stream of our final rounds. And this Sunday we got the Great Lakes Open here in Michigan. Should be an exciting one. And then Disc Golf Network, DGN right here. And that's a kind of our bread and butter, our live streaming service. We've got nearly 30,000 subscribers now, and it seems to be like growing every month. So
I love it, man. Well, kudos and congratulations one more time, Jeff Springs, CEO and tour director of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Appreciate your time today, man.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it, Michael.